Hello, it's Morgan Studios, Freestyle Ukulele Intervals. We need to know intervals because that'll help us form chords, scales. It helps us keep from getting lost. Okay, two things to lodge in your memory. You have to know your fourths, 7362514, and you have to know where the half steps are. So to know the fourths, as you see here, I have this shark. This is supposed to be a shark here. You have to think about Jaws and the movie, how it goes. When the killer shark comes to come get Richard Dreyfuss, his character, the music goes dun 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 dun, and it gets all like suspenseful. And so that whole feeling, I want you to associate that with counting down. Okay, there's 7 notes in the scale. You're counting down. Jaws, the teeth, I drew the teeth there. That's to remind you to draw this little sawtooth pattern to count down the notes and kind of figure out the fourths, the 7362514. If you don't have it memorized already. If you have it memorized already, you can skip this part and go to the next part. So fourths, jaws, fourths, 4 teeth, right? Fourths connected to 4 teeth. So you make 4 teeth here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you count down. 7, 6, 5, 4. And then the teeth on the top. 3, 2, 1. Put it all together. 7362514. Just know that. 7362514. And to help you, use that Jaws kind of sawtooth dun 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 memory aid. So once you know 7362514, those are fourths going in that direction. 7362514 going to the right. But if we go to the left, those are fifths. 415267. I'm kind of fuzzy on the fifths, but what I do is I either write it down. It's no shame in writing it down. I know this is freestyle. We're not supposed to write anything down, but if you have a workbook and if you write things down, that helps it lodge in your memory, so you don't have to write it anymore. And that's one thing I haven't said so far. Have a workbook, okay? It's not like a fake book where you have to go to reference it all the time, but it's just kind of how like an athlete works out. He has to do certain repetitions in order to get the muscle memory, in order to get his body in shape, right? So your workbook, that's kind of like a mental training ground to kind of lodge things in your memory so you don't have to go to the book, right? So get a workbook. Just any composition notebook will do, or a piece of paper or a napkin, if you need to write your 7362514 down. Okay, we're done with that. Now, next part. You keep going and you repeat with the flats. Okay? This is how you get all 12 notes. Okay? So we start 7362514. And then flats. Flat 7, flat 3, flat 6, flat 2, flat 5, flat 1, flat 4. But we go, wait a minute, we stop at the flat 1 because we know flat 1, that's a 7. So here comes the second part. You have to know where the half steps are. Okay? A half step from your 1, 7 to 1 is a half step. Okay? But how can we remember that if you're just starting out? If you're intermediate, you probably already know that. But for the others, here's what you can do. Or here's what I did at the very beginning. I said, hey, I'm familiar with the piano. I know this is freestyle ukulele, but piano it's an easy visual layout that I can remember. So think piano keys in your mind's eye. The white keys are the C major scale. And where you don't have a black key, that's your half step. Half step, missing black keys, right? So we know C is the one next to the two black keys. That's C. That's where you start. And you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it starts over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like that. This is just basic kind of music notation, how the basic music alphabet goes. In Western music, people like to say that in Western music. All right, so keep going down. So we know the half step is in between the 7 and the 1 because there's no black key, and there's a half step between the 3 and the 4. There's no black key. That's how I remember that. Okay, C major scale, I already said, that's all white keys. And you have 12. This is kind of going into just the musical alphabet and the notes. You have 7 natural notes. Those are the white keys. And you have 5 sharps and flats. Those are the black keys. 5 plus 7 gives you the 12 notes in Western music, right? And you can call the ones in between sharps or flats depending on how the notation is set up. Not going to get too much in notation because this is freestyle. It's just all about kind of not losing yourself in these shapes and everything. Everything you learn is kind of like helps this kind of scaffolding, the skeleton of how you want to put everything together so you can just flow without, all these books and references and stuff. So you can freestyle. All right. The way you can remember A440, A4 is 440. I guess I was getting off on a tangent in these notes here. But sometimes you have to tune with a electronic tuner, and it'll say A4 or A5 or A6 like that. Just know A4, that's your reference, your tuning reference is A4. It's 444, A4. Since we're talking about fours and fourths, that's another 4 you can kind of associate and link. All about association and just remembering everything. Okay. Tuning fork looks like a 4. All right, that's just a sidebar. Now, last thing, and we'll be done with these intervals, okay? The ukulele mostly is tuned in fourths. So what you have here, if you start on the low string, it's 1, 4, flat 7, flat 3. Go back to your fourths, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, flat 7, flat 3, yada, yada, yada. You'll get that, okay? 1, 4, flat 7, flat 3. And then we all know between the second and third string, we have that shift because it's a third in between these two. It's a third in between those two. Okay? Now, here we go. It's a third in between those two. All right, so now let's use that, okay? Use the fourths, not the fourths, Star Wars fans. Use the fourth, okay? It sounds like I'm having a lisp. Probably do. Anyway, so you know the fourth is 2 dots next to each other. That's a fourth. Flat 7 kind of goes diagonal and you skip a string. The flat third, which is you're skipping an octave, that's really a sharp 2 or a sharp 9. So that's what it's called if it's up an octave, okay? So you get those 3 for free, the fourth, the flat 7, and the flat 3, because you all link it to just how the ukulele is tuned. And this is how the guitar is tuned on the top 4 strings. Now, last of this. Use your half steps and your whole steps and know that piano key memory aid, okay? That little memory game there. I call these the secondary intervals. You have these 3 intervals that you should know just from your fourths, right? 1, 4, flat 7, flat 3. So we can get the third by saying, all right, I know it's a half step down, so my third is here. So that's kind of like a third. And you'll see these in your shapes, your chord shapes, like the cage chord shapes and other chord shapes. So that's a third. And then a second, we just have to know between 1 and 2 is a whole step. And a whole step is 1, you skip a fret. You skip 1 fret. That's a whole step. Okay? Whole step. So a 2 looks like that. You'll notice that from like your scales. If you have a major scale, it'll start out skipping a fret. So that's the second. Like that, go back. Let's rewind. We're just doing all this. It just helps. It just helps keep everything organized, and you can actually remember more if you say, oh man, I remember that had a whole step in it, or okay, wait a minute, it's a major key, it's a major chord, so it's a 1, 3, 5, so I go a 1, a third, and then a fifth, and then you can come at it both ways. If you don't quite remember all of your shapes, you can kind of derive it and use the intervals. It's all these different little tools you can use, right, to kind of help you piece it together without the book, without the chord book and everything. And that's what freestyle is all about. Not having the chord book in front of you, just using music as a language. Okay, here we go. 6 to 7. We know that that's a flat 7. And we should know from the piano memory thing, if you go down from a flat 7, you get a 6. So that's a 6th. And you just skip a string. And then you go up half step to get the 7. So a 7th is like you skip a string and you skip a fret. Right? But all in all, you just keep these core intervals in your head, right? You may not remember all the blue, but as you start playing and you start exploring, you'll see it over and over again and it'll get easier. Okay, last one is the 9th. We know that from here to here is our flat 3. And we know we've skipped an interval, right? We're past the octave, okay? Because your 2, you have another 2 right here, right? I'll just say 2, right? There's your 2, and then you're going to have another 2. It's going to be up an octave. So flat 3, you go back from flat 3, you get a 2. And all of this, if you think about the piano keys, like I said before, that's what I used. Maybe you can use another method, whatever method works. But that's a flat 3. Half step down is a 2, which is a 9, because we're skipping an octave. Okay. Hope you made it through. Yeah, this is kind of boring, I know, but I should have put 1 fret, 2 frets there. I'll update my notes. All right, Old Morgan Studios intervals. I'll have one more video on the octave. I didn't do the octave because that's kind of like a separate little thing in your mind. You think octaves, it's just 2 shapes for the octaves. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Like and subscribe.